Hello, everybody. I think I'm live. This is the first time I'm doing this, so um, I hope I'm doing it right. I hope it's working. I think I'm live. Oh, and now I'm hearing myself back. I need to turn my laptop sound off. Okay, but if I'm hearing myself back, that means I'm live. So that's a good sign. Hey, everybody in the chat. Thanks for coming to hang out with me. I'm in my sewing studio corner today, and I figured I would do some sewing with you guys and take you along on a little project. So, what I want to do today is fix a pair of my jeans. So, I have always got the same problem with jeans. They always break in exactly the same place. And that place is, let me try to show this, on the inside of the thigh. So here I've got a nice rip going on the inside of the leg. For some reason, that's where they always break for me, and it always happens fairly quickly when the rest of the pants are still in perfectly good shape. And I do not want to get rid of them just because there's a rip in it. So I do this repair quite a lot. I've actually done it on the other side of this pair of pants. You can't really tell, but there used to be a big rip here as well. So this is sort of a common fix for me. All my pants go through this at one point or another. And I have one here today that I figured we could do together. If you have any questions along the way, please put them in the chat. I will try to keep an eye on it and see if I can answer some questions about like the sewing machine and why I'm doing things and stuff like that as I go. So please ask questions. I want this to be a conversation instead of just me putting on a demonstration. So ask any questions you have. But for now, I will just get started on this fix. So let me see. I have this fancy other camera going on. Let's see if I can make that work. Yeah, and I need to focus a little bit here. There we go. So this is the rip in my jeans. You can see there's some of the thread still here left over. And it's sort of very close to the seam here. So that's going to be a little bit of a challenge to work around that. What I'm going to do is take some scrap denim fabric that's fairly close in color to the original. It's a little bit darker. And I'm going to make a patch out of this. I'm going to put it on the inside. And then I'm going to stitch across it in sort of a larger area to reinforce. Because you can already see here, this white line, the fabric is getting very thin here. It's starting to fade, and probably not too long from now, that will rip as well. So I'm just going to reinforce this whole area around here, and then hopefully it'll last a good long time. So let's start with making a patch, and then I can start sewing that on there. So this is a piece of scrap fabric that I have left over from when I made my own pair of jeans. So it's just a random little cut off piece. And I keep stuff like this exactly for this purpose, because every now and then you're going to need a little bit of fabric to fix something up. So then you're happy you still have it, and you don't have to go out and buy denim just because you need a little patch. So what size do we need? Let's see. Where is my rip? So I want to go a little bit bigger, maybe around here. Can you see this properly? There we go. And one thing to keep in mind with these pants is that this is a stretch fabric. So there's not so much stretch in this direction, as you can see, but there is a lot of stretch in this direction. I think most modern jeans have at least a little bit of stretch in it, just because it's more comfortable. And then the super tight jeans have a lot of stretch in them. And what I want to prevent is that I take away the stretch from this area. So if I fix a piece of fabric on the inside here, and that fabric doesn't stretch, then this whole section isn't going to stretch anymore, and my pants are not going to be as comfortable to wear. So I want to make sure that whatever I do to this still allows for this stretch. This denim fabric does not stretch. This is an old school, really 100% cotton denim fabric, and there's not a lot of stretch in it. So there's one little tip I can give you, is that woven fabric, it does not stretch on its own in these two directions, but it will stretch diagonally because of the woven threads going like this and like that. It will stretch in this direction because there's a little bit of room for the fibers to move. So it's not a lot, but you can see there is a little bit of stretch here. So what I want to do is make sure that that direction of stretch is actually in the stretch direction of the pants. So that is across the leg. All right, so like that. So I want to cut my pants in a way, my patch in a way that it actually has the stretch direction going there. So I will grab my scissors. I will grab a little bit of chalk. Where is my stretch? It's right here. So I will put this sort of on here and draw out a little patch. So I want it to be like this. Yeah, I can probably follow that line and maybe this far. There we go. It's hard to see on the camera with the chalk, but I just drew this little shape here. And that's what I'm going to use for my patch. So I can cut that out. I'm just having a look at the chat now. Hey, everybody. It's great to have you join in. Let me try this other fancy camera thing so you can actually see my face as well. We have a question. How do you learn different things? Is there anything unforgettable moments of your experience? I learn different things just by doing them and having a go. I'm lucky to have a lot of maker friends amongst all of you that if I try something new that you're good at, I have sort of a helpline. But typically I'm the type of person that just tries something and then fails, and then I know what not to do. And then next time, hopefully I avoid that same mistake and try something else. And in the end, I get to somewhere that works. Of course, YouTube is a huge help. I watch a lot of YouTube videos when I'm trying to learn something new. Let's see what I'm just scrolling now. Are there any other questions that come up? I'm not so good yet at both reading and doing at the same time. Oh, I have some donations coming in. Thank you. That is very nice. Oh, lots of people here. Cool. Jesse, you're sweet. All right, I'll keep going. So I'm going to cut out my patch. And I try to not have any like super sharp corners on it, just because they, one thing at a time, if you have a super sharp corner like this, it's easy for it to sort of roll up and get loose over time. So the curves are actually a bit more, how do you say that? They last a bit longer. They don't have as much tendency to roll up on you. I've got here, one here as well. All right. So that is my patch. I can get rid of all of this. Whoop. There we go. So now I have my patch. There's two ways to continue. If you have a bit of sewing experience and you're sort of more comfortable with the sewing machine, you can just go ahead and place this on the inside and start sewing. But you have to pay attention because this is all open and loose. And you don't want to create like folds in here where you're sort of getting stuck on the sewing machine or you're accidentally stretching this gap very wide as you're sewing, because the machine will pull on it a little bit. And you don't want to just make the hole bigger than it is. So I do tend to do it that way because I've done this a lot. So I know sort of how to feel for it and make sure everything stays where it's supposed to be. But if you're less experienced, there's an easy trick to make life a lot easier for you. And that involves this stuff. It's very loud. It sounds just like paper. That's because it's mostly paper. But there's something on the paper. That's what we need. So this is called fusible interfacing, or actually there's another word for it. Is Janie here? Help me out. What's the English word for this stuff? It's basically a layer of glue that you can iron onto fabric. So this is the glue. The paper is just a carrier. And you use the iron to iron this onto your fabric. So I'm basically turning this into an iron-on patch. And then I take the paper off so that the other side of the glue is exposed. And then I iron my patch onto my jeans. And then it won't move anymore. It's glued in place. It will still come off with like all of the rubbing and movement of wearing your jeans. So you need to stitch it down anyway. But it just keeps it in place while you're stitching it down. So you don't have to worry about everything moving around. I'm trying to come up with the name for this stuff in my mind. I think it's not interfacing. It's like fusible something. Fusible web. I think that's it. Thanks, James. Wonder Web, I guess, might be a brand name for it. But so this, I have a big roll of this, as you can see, because I just buy this in bulk and I use it on a lot of different stuff. If you're doing applique, like trying to put letters on, if you've seen my flag line video where I put letters on the little band flags, I use this stuff as well to hold the letters in place while you sew them on. So it's really quite useful. Now I need a piece that is the same size as my patch. Let me just get a rough piece first so I can get rid of all the noise. There we go. You're so happy to see me making videos again. Thank you. Yes, I am well. I've had a bit of a rough time the last year and a half or so I haven't been fully on the videos again. But I'm starting to do much better and I'm happy to be back as well. And I think the live is a great thing because I don't have to do a bunch of editing. So this works quite well. All right, so I have a rough piece. I want to get that exactly the size. The thing is, I don't want to just iron on this one like this, because then there's glue everywhere and I'm just going to iron it to my ironing mat, and I don't want that. I need that. So what I can do, actually, let's make things easier on myself, is get another piece of paper. I'm going to be very loud now. Sorry about that. I'm done. So I have my fusible interfacing fusible web. First the paper, then the glue itself. Then I'm going to put my denim on top. Now I want the colored side of the denim to be towards the outside of my jeans. And I'm going to glue it on the inside. So I need actually the glue to be on the nice looking side, because that's going to face the outside. So I will put that on here. And now there's a bunch of glue still around here. So I'll just put another piece of paper on top. Then I can iron it, and then I'll peel the paper off, and I don't have glue all over my iron or my ironing mat. So I have my iron warmed up. I'll just move the camera around and take you over there so we can iron it on. What's the biggest challenge you're facing at the moment? How post-COVID life going, or does it bring any changes in my life? I mean, COVID's definitely been a big challenge. Isolation, not being able to see my friends, like Make a Central coming up 5 weeks from now. I haven't seen most of you in 3 years. And you give me so much inspiration that it's just not having that. Took a toll, of course, and being more isolated, not being able to travel. But also just sometimes other stuff in your life takes up your brain power. Like I've had some personal issues, some mental health stuff to work on as well. So even without COVID, there's always personal stuff in all of our lives. We're not just perfect people that everything goes smoothly and every day is just like, yay, let's go. Life is an ebb and flow. So I've been going through a bit of an ebb, but now it feels like it's starting to flow again. And seeing everyone again soon at Maker Central is definitely lifting my spirits as well. Okay, I will take you over there to the iron. Ooh. Say hi to Laika. She's hiding there. It's her little corner. Okay, let's see. Here we have my nice iron that I'm very happy with, the big boy. And I will try to focus for you so you can actually see what I'm doing. There we go. Now I can't see if I'm in camera. Yeah, I am. Okay, good. So I'll take my little sandwich. Not the tasty kind, but the sewing kind. I have my glue, my patch, my paper. Whoop. There we go. Make sure it's all lined up. And I'll just take my iron, which I've already preheated because I'm super prepared like that. Actually, with this new iron, it's a lot easier to just keep it preheated. It doesn't lose as much heat, and the water tank is very well insulated, so it's easier to just have it running. All right, so I'm just putting a bit of pressure here to make sure it all fuses well. And then I will see if that was a success. All right. I think that's good. So now this is all attached together. So there's a layer of glue still in between there. So I'll cut it out and then I can iron it onto the jeans. I'm not going to use my nice fabric scissors for this because I'm cutting paper right now. And if you want to make a sewing person very angry, you will use their fabric scissors on paper. Because there's nothing that will make scissors blunt quicker than cutting paper. So there's just a little warning for you. But I think people living with a sewing fan already know that. All right. So now I have my custom patch and I'll go grab my jeans. What are you guys saying? Yeah, you're just all being very sweet. It's great to see you all hanging out together. All right, so I want to iron it on the inside. So I'm going to turn my jeans inside out. And find my hole. Here you can see a little preview of last time I did this on the other side. That one's holding up well. So, let me see, can you actually see this? Here we go. I'm gonna lay it nice and flat. Let me adjust the camera a little bit. There. Okay, so here's my rip. I'm gonna cut away this extra thread that is still in here. It's just gonna make things messy. So I will just cut it away. There we go. So I'm gonna lay this out as flat as possible without stretching it at all. So just completely flat. You can see here already the fabric is getting very thin. It's a bit hard to see on camera, but there's about to be another rip in here. So it's good that I'm fixing it now. And then I will put my patch over there, just right up against the seam. So I will need to peel back the paper. It's just like a giant sticker now. There we go. Can you see the shiny? That's the glue on there. So let me make sure I cover all of those other weak points. There we go. That looks about right. And I will just press that on there. Make sure I'm getting all the little corners. There we go. So now you can also see why it's nice to not have sharp corners, because like up here, you can imagine if this was a sharp corner, it'd be very easy to just roll it up like this with movement. With a blunt corner, that's not going to happen as much. So that's my patch in place. Very tempting to now call it done, but we still have to stitch it down so that it doesn't move and it just stays properly in place. So to the sewing machine. All right. What are people saying? Question: Are your scissors made by Janome? You nearly fainted at the price of tailoring scissors. Yeah, they can be expensive. It also does tend to be you get what you pay for. So actually mine are not by Janome. I won these in an Instructables contest. They are very nice. They are made by Ginger, Italy, and they are spring loaded. So they're open automatically and you only push them close and then they spring open on their own. So that's actually really nice. They have a little locking mechanism on there to keep them closed. And I added this little rubber myself. That's some Sugru glue, but it sort of turns to rubber. And it just makes them a little bit more comfortable because I have a scar here on my thumb. And that's exactly where I tend to hold my scissors. So I added a little soft thingy there as well. So these are very, very nice. Do you worry that the glue will gum up the needle and thread? No, not with this glue, because it's only tacky when it's hot. So it's basically just hot glue, and with the iron you make it tacky, and then you glue it down. Once it's cold again, it's almost cold now, you can sew through it without problem. So that's also why it's specifically made for sewing, and you don't get any problem with it. If you use, for example, sticky Velcro, you know, the Velcro band with the glue on the back that you can peel and then stick, that's not meant for sewing. That's supposed to be like on door frames or whatever else. That will really gum up your needle. If you try to stitch through that, your machine will have trouble going through the glue layer and all the glue will stick to your needle. It's a whole mess. So this stuff is specifically for sewing. Once it's cold, it doesn't stick anymore. You don't even know it's there. So that's very nice. There are also, if you insist on sewing through something tacky, there are special needles. I forget what they're called, but there's a special type of needle that is less prone to glue sticking to it. So if you're going to sew through something sticky, you might want to invest in some of those just to make your life a little bit easier. But yeah, I have tried sewing through something sticky and it's not fun, so I feel your pain. This is a sewing machine, not a serger. The main giveaway is that it only has one needle. A serger is this guy over here. Wait, let me change to this camera. This is a serger. It has 4 spools of thread and it has 2 needles. And that's what makes those typical serge seams in clothing. We can play with that another time, maybe on another craft festival or another video. But so a serger, you recognize because it has 3 or 4 spools of thread, 2 needles, and the regular sewing machine only has 1 spool of thread and 1 needle. What's the interplay between learning and doing? For me, they're the same. I learn as I do. It's not always in my favor, but that's how I learn best. Like I have some books in terms like with sewing techniques, how to put in a fly zipper, how to make certain pockets. And sometimes I will follow them step by step, but more often than not, I'm like, I don't know why this is done this way. Should we not do it another way? And I try it another way first. And 9 times out of 10, that doesn't work. And it's like, oh, so that's why it's done this way. Now I see, because this is an absolute disaster. And now I appreciate that the steps are like this and that I should actually follow them. So that's 9 times out of 10. Sometimes I find out a way that works better for me, but usually I go into that like, I'm just going to try this and then I'll know why not to do this. Did you learn the overlocker first or the regular machine? The regular one. If you want to start sewing, don't start with the serger. It is sort of a one-trick pony. It does one thing very, very well, but you can only do that one thing with it. So you could theoretically make like a simple t-shirt or a shopping bag with just a serger, but you're going to have to pull some tricks to make that work. Whereas with a normal sewing machine, you can do anything. You can make any type of project. You can make clothing, you can make decorations, pillow covers, anything you want. And you can do everything with just this one machine. You do not need a serger. So if you just have a normal machine, you can do anything you want. There are certain things that will go quicker and easier with a serger. So it tends to be sort of the second machine you get when you do a lot of sewing and it's worth for you to put in that money and buy another machine, just to make some things go easier and be neater and things like that. But everything you can do with that, you can do with this one. It might just take you a little bit more time. So yeah. Also, the main thing about sergers is that they're very intimidating to thread because you have 4 threads going on. It's better to start practicing with a normal one. All right, are we ready to start sewing? I think so. I will go here again. All right, so I have my sewing machine and I'm going to start by putting some thread in it because it usually works better that way. Let's see. All right, so in case you don't know, a sewing machine, a normal one, it has a top thread, which is usually a spool, and there's a bobbin in the bottom, the second thread, and then the machine sort of links those 2 threads together as you sew. So you always need to load 2 things. I have my spool, and then I will pick a sort of matching color bottom thread. I think these are pretty close. So depending on your machine, the more newer modern machines tend to be top loading, meaning that you drop the bobbin in from the top. The more old school machines, you load it from the front of the machine. Let's see. There we go. So my bobbin, there's a certain way to thread it, and it depends a little bit on the machine how to do that. But then the top threading tends to be the same for all machines, just because the mechanism works a certain way. There was a spool holder back here, but I broke it. So I'm using sort of a secondary spool holder. Thread, yes, Andy, it does help to use thread in your sewing machine. It holds things together a little bit better. So there's usually a number of steps to go through. Some machines like this one, they have very clear instructions with like pictures and numbers. So first here, then there to load the thread. So if you're a beginner, that can be nice. But typically they all thread the same way on the top. So once you know one, you can sort of figure out the others. You've never seen a top loader? Okay. Yeah, I mean, older machines and maybe new, cheaper machines, they tend to have front loader. I think mechanically it's just a little bit more difficult with the top loading. So the old school machines are all from the front. And you have this little bobbin case that you need to put the bobbin in, and then you click it into the machine. You can see this is a lot more straightforward. You just drop it in and thread it. I have a well professional modern sewing machine and old ones which you know how to use. Yes, this is actually, it's not that special, this machine. I got it from my mother as a gift when I graduated. So I must have been like 24. So it's a 9-year-old machine already. So it's not like super modern. It is digital. It has a screen, but it works pretty much exactly the same way as old school sewing machines. The top threading is the same way. I just have more types of stitches that you wouldn't have on a purely mechanical machine, because mechanical machines can't go backwards. They only sew in one direction. And because this one can go backwards, it has a lot more stitches. And then also because it's computer programmed, even if your machine can go backwards, this one has all sorts of fancy shapes and flowers and things that I never use, but I do have them. But old machines, it's just a matter of getting to know them, finding a manual. They usually have a lot of slides and buttons going on over here instead of just this integrated computer buttons. But they work the same way. The mechanism is the same way. The settings, the threading, it's all the same. It's just not hidden behind this sort of fancy looking exterior. So once you know one sewing machine, you can pretty much figure out the rest. The only thing is, like, I was used to this one, and then the first time I was on a front-loaded bobbin, I was like, I don't know how to put this or where this goes. So someone had to explain to me how to put the bobbin in. But other than that, the old machines are perfectly good, and they work the same way. I actually have an old Singer treadle machine in the other room that I haven't used it yet, but it should work. I want to fix it up and actually make it work again. But that's one of the old, like, treadle. It doesn't have electric power, and it works exactly the same as this machine. It doesn't have the different stitching options. It just goes straight, but still, it works exactly the same. Yeah, and the 1982 Bernina. Those machines, they were really built like a tank. They're heavy. They're very heavy, and that just means they're very sturdy and high quality. If you're buying a sewing machine today and you're looking at, like, sort of lower end of the costs, the weight is a very good indicator. Like, if you lift up the machine, you want it to be heavy. Like, I have trouble lifting it up like this because you want a strong metal frame that's not going to go anywhere. I've opened this machine up once. It wasn't working anymore. Something got stuck. And I found a manual online of how to take all of these plastic covers off of, like, the hidden opening points. And if you look inside, I have pictures of that on my Instagram. You'll have to scroll a bit back. You can see the inside, and it looks exactly the same like any other sewing machine. And then you can just see the heavy metal frame inside of here to keep everything aligned. Yeah, they just throw some nice plastic covers on it to make it look modern. Yeah. All right, what was I doing? I was threading. All right, so the thing that can be a little bit mysterious about sewing machines is the tension. There is a tension dial up here. Typically, the standard value is 4. The tension, it's pretty much how much force does the machine put on pulling the thread back up. And if it pulls too hard, then your stitches will end up too much on the top. And if it doesn't pull hard enough, then the thread will be loose on the bottom. So I can show you what happens in a sec. My machine also has an automatic needle threader, which is quite fancy. That's another benefit of a modern machine. It just pulls it right through the hole in the needle, so that's nice. But so what happens when you sew is there's a thread here on the bottom, and there's a thread on the top. And they need to link around each other, and then they get pulled to their own side again. So there's an arm here going down. There's a big loop of thread being created, and then that loop needs to be pulled back up. So it creates a lot of slack in the thread, so there's room to loop it around the bottom thread, and then you need to pull all of that slack back up. And that's what the tension setting does. It just tells the machine how hard to pull it up. Yeah. All right, so my machine is loaded. I've got a normal sewing foot on here, and I'm ready to go. This is a bit of a tricky spot because it's inside the leg. So I'm going to have to pull the jeans over the machine to be able to reach it. Because I don't want to sew the leg together. Then it's not going to be wearable anymore. So I only want this one layer. Then a lot of machines will have this option, which is called a free arm. So you can have the table, which gives you more surface area, but then I can pull this section off. And here there is room underneath, so now I can loop something around here. It's great for if you're like doing the cuffs on sleeves and things like that, so you can just loop the whole thing around and get the rest out of the way. So that's what I'm going to do. Now I'm going to have to wrangle this a little bit to get it how I want it to be. To go underneath the presser foot. All right, so I don't have full freedom here. Like I cannot turn this around 360 because, you know, there's parts of the pants in the way. So I'm gonna just go back and forth a little bit without actually turning the piece around and then going forward again. I'm gonna be using my backwards function quite a bit. All right, so presser foot down. And I've mentioned before when cutting the patch that you want to make sure it still stretches, right? Because these are stretchy jeans. If I start sewing now with a straight stitch, a line of straight stitching can't stretch, right? You're going to just have a line of thread, and that thread is just fixed. It can't stretch itself. So then, even though my patch is stretchy and my fabric is stretchy, if I just sew a straight line of stitching across, it's not going to be able to stretch anymore. So what I want to do is use a stitch that will allow for stretch. I have several options for that on this machine, but I'm just going to go with the most straightforward zigzag. So I'm selecting that now on my dial. Can you see the screen on there? Yeah. So for me, that's setting number 5. It's the zigzag. And then it has some default settings for the length and the width of the stitch. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Right now, the length of a stitch is 1.4 millimeters and the width is 3.5. I'm fine with the width. I want them to be a little bit longer so that there's more room to stretch. So I'm going to up this to maybe 2 millimeters. I don't know what the right number is. I'm just saying, okay, a little bit longer is probably good. So don't think that there's like, oh yeah, that function, you need 2.6 millimeters. It's like, no. I'll just see if it looks good, and if it's too tight, then I will adjust it as I go. All right, so where do I start? I'm just going to go all the way across this back and forth in different directions. I just want to reinforce the general area, basically. So I'm not going to clearly go around the edges or anything like that. I'm just going to go all the way across. And just sew some lines in here. Okay, so presser foot down. That's all set up. I need my paddle. Where is it? Okay, I've got my foot on the pedal now. And you always start sewing by going forwards and then a little bit of backwards and then forwards again. You do that so that you sew over your own stitching and it attaches the threads in place. Because if you just sew a straight line, then the threads aren't knotted or anything. So you can actually just pull them back out. So you want to secure them in the beginning and in the end. If you have a very old machine like my Fredel Singer that does not go backwards, you would do that at the end. When you're done sewing and take it off the machine, you would then secure the ends. But most machines, even the 30, 40-year-old ones, will be able to go backwards. So you just do that at the beginning. So for me, it's a button right here, backwards. So I'll go a little bit forwards, a few stitches. Then I'll hold backwards, so it'll go back a little bit. And now my threads are secure, and I can just go any direction that I want to go. So I'm just going right across until the end of the patch. I'm going to lift up my presser foot, turn the whole thing around a little bit in a different direction, and then I'm going to hold backwards and just go back across the other way. All right, I'm off the patch again, so I will turn it around. And I'm really just going crisscross in any direction right now, just to secure the whole thing in place. Let me see if I can give you a little bit of a zoom right here. There we go. I'm really having to wrestle the rest of these jeans a little bit here. Let's see, how about I go this way? Now, especially on this inside edge of the patch, I am going to follow the edge with my zigzag and make sure one of the zigzag ends up on the patch and one side ends up off the patch, just to give this edge that's going to have a lot of movement going on a little bit more protection, so that's not going to come loose. So now I actually have to steer instead of just going back and forth. And I'm trying to keep that edge of the patch right in the middle of the zigzag. And if you're wondering how I know where to aim, a pressure foot like this actually has a little line in the middle. You can't see it from the camera, but it has a marking right next to the needle. So I know that if I line the fabric, the edge of the patch up with that line, it's going to end up right in the middle of the zigzag. A little bit of a sharp turn here. Okay, so now I have that edge nicely covered. Franco, you want to get a machine too? Yay! It is a lot of fun, and it's not that complicated. Especially on modern machines, they just do a lot of the work for you. I think I'm about getting there in terms of coverage. Oh, I've almost got a star going. I'll do one more line over here on the edge, and then we'll take it off and see what we have. All right, so now I think I'm done. So I want to make sure my thread is secure. So I'm going to go backwards and forwards a couple times to sew over my own thread, and then that will pretty much tie it in place. There we go. So now I can take my piece off the machine. The thread is still attached, both on this side and on the bottom. So you're going to have to cut those. Go. Let me find the thread here. All right. Let's see. This is the beginning thread that's also still attached to the little bit of extra. So I can clip all of those off. And the same on the outside. And you can see on the outside here, because I've used thread that is the same color pretty much as the fabric, you don't really see it, especially when you're wearing it, especially because this is the inner thigh. No one's going to be able to see. Of course, you can use a contrasting thread color if you want it to make it visible, which can be nice as well. All right, so I'm almost done. You can see I've got my patch secured in place. This whole area is now reinforced. But this original rip, it's still a little bit fraying. So I just want to completely tighten that down by sewing straight across here with a zigzag. I'm going to do this from this side. I didn't do that from the other side because I need to be able to see the rip to be able to follow along with it. So I will now put it on the machine again, but now with this side up, and then I'll go back and forth here a little bit. Just reading some of the comments. Mostly understanding all of this. Good. Sewed a few buttons and repaired a couple simple seams. Never any jeans, though I don't have a thicker needle for the denim. Very good point. I'm actually for this only using a universal sewing needle. So there's different types. Specifically denim needles are stronger, and what really matters when you really need a denim needle is for seams. So on denim, like here for example, you fold over and you have several layers of denim. So for a seam like this, you have 4 layers of denim that you're sewing through. And then you really will have a benefit with a denim needle that's specifically meant for it. It's sharper, it's stronger, it's not going to break as much. So that will make your life easier. Also for stuff like this, I think this might be like 6, maybe even 8 layers of denim that you're going through. So then you really need a denim needle. But for this patch, I'm only going through 2 layers, right? I have the original layer and then the outside layer. I haven't sewn over the seam at all, just right up to the edge of it. So this type of thing you can actually do with just a regular sewing machine needle. I have the universal one on here now. And as you can see, it's working perfectly fine. So stuff like this, you don't need a special needle. I'm glad you're all finding it informative. That's good. I'm trying to throw in as much of little information as I can. How does making things lead to innovation? Any challenges? Are challenges create opportunities? Oh yeah. I think just look at the jig making that woodworkers do, right? So they're like, this could be easier. Let me make a little jig or a little tool to help me with this. I'm actually starting to work on a couple of tools to use for sewing, like little measuring things and marking things, making some of those that will make my life easier. I think some of you will have seen my seam ripper with the long handle and things like that. All right, I was gonna put this back on the sewing machine. I have to turn it right side out again. Here we go. A little bit of wrangling here to get this lined up. So here's my original rib. And I'm just going to take a few passes back and forth with the zigzag to secure that in place. And I'm not just doing one line, because then it'll be very likely that the thread will just sort of fray and it won't really do much. So I'm taking a pass on either side and then a pass through the middle, sort of roughly, to really just pin it down. That doesn't sound good. I think my bobbin is having an issue. Let's have a look. Ooh, yeah, it ate my thread. That happens sometimes. I'm just gonna cut it loose. There we go. Probably a sign that I need to clean my machine. If it starts doing stuff like that. Should have really cleaned it before doing a demo, but all right. But I think I've got most of it done anyway. Let me focus. There we go. So I took several passes. It got a little bit bumpy here where it started to eat my thread, so I might come back and sort of even that out. There's going to be the starter threads and the starter and ending thread on the inside of this, so I'm going to have to turn it inside out to get rid of those. And then you can also really see where I went back and forth a couple of times. So I'll just snip those off. And there we go. A nice little patch. It should have really reinforced this whole area. And from the outside, it looks like this. I think what I'll do is also take a quick little pass of zigzags over here, because that's already looking pretty weak. So I'll just give that a little bit of extra reinforcement. See if my bobbin is willing to behave. Oh yeah, see it ate a whole bunch of thread there. Sewing machines are very finely tuned machines. They really need to be super exact, because you can see how fast the needle is moving, and every time the needle goes down, it picks up that bottom thread, it loops it around and pulls it back up, and it goes at incredible speeds. And so if there's a little piece of fluff or anything else in the way, it'll get thrown off course. So I have taken out the extra threads that were in the way, and now I'm just gonna put a little bit of extra stitching on this weak area over here. Need to tune in with all your senses. Yes, a machine like this, if you hear something that's out of the ordinary, then that's usually a sign that something is happening. More dangerous than a bandsaw. I find it funny that a lot of woodworkers seem to be intimidated by sewing machines, because I think a table saw is a lot more intimidating than a sewing machine. Like, the worst you can do here is, well, sew over your finger, but you'll really have to try, especially on modern machines, to actually accomplish that. And the nice thing is, like, if you're used to the machine, you can go fast. Like, I have it on my fastest setting now, but the control is a gas pedal basically, so you can go slow. And these modern machines, you can even limit the speed. So even if I push the pedal all the way down, it's only going to go very, very slow. So there's no difference to the result whether you go slow or fast. So if you're practicing, don't be afraid to go slow. I'll show you. If I only push the pedal a little bit, you can really see what's happening. So I'm going backwards a bit to secure the threads. And I'm going forward. So you can see I have all the time in the world to make adjustments and steer and make sure I'm staying on track. Of course, I'm impatient and I like to go a little bit faster. Yeah. Oh, I was blocking that shot very nicely with my hand. You can see why sewing machines are sometimes easily disrupted when you look at the speeds that needle moves, right? It's quite a precision machine. All right. I think that should do it. I could just pull the whole jeans away from the machine so I can easily see the thread and then cut it, but it just wastes a whole lot of thread and I don't like it. So I tend to just find it with the piece still here and then pull it off so I don't keep wasting all of this thread. All right, let's find the beginning and ending thread. Here we go. Cut those off. Go back to the outside. See if I need to trim any threads. All right. There we go. My patch is done. It's got 2 layers of fabric now, so it should be a while before that wire wears all the way through again. And I'm ready to wear my jeans. I'm just trying to get this view back. There we go. Thank you all very much for joining me. It was great to see your comments coming in. I hope I explained everything clearly and you enjoyed yourself and you learned something. And for me, it was great to hang out and I can wear my jeans again. So that's a win-win as well. All right. Next up in the craft festival, this was only the second session of the craft festival. So please go to, wait, I have a fancy thing for this. Let me put this on. Go to virtuallycrafty.com. That will take you to the playlist. So you'll automatically get sent to the next person in line who's doing the next session. So if you go there, you can make sure you don't miss anyone. You don't have to go looking for YouTube accounts and that sort of stuff. So Kenny Cosplay is up next. So go to virtuallycrafty.com and check out what they're going to do. All right, then I'm signing off. Have a good day, everyone. Enjoy the sunshine if it's sunny where you are too. And I'll see you another time. Bye.